Dobrodošli na Smart Life podcastu, kjer v pogovorih iščemo odgovore na vprašanja, kako živeti bolj smiselno, uravnovešeno in zavestno življenje v tem modernem svetu.
Welcome everybody on Student Wellbeing Podcast. Today we have a very special guest, Martin Hausner, or also known Mahatma Das. Welcome. Thank you so much for taking your time. So Mahatma Das, he's a spiritual teacher, a traveler, traveling all around the world, teaching people about different topics which can benefit their life. And also right now we just ended with the retreat in the mountains in Slovenia. We did a retreat on mantra meditation. So it was very refreshing. It was like an international gathering. People came from Colombia, from Denmark, Germany, all around the world. America also. All around the world, just to participate.
Don't forget America.
In this event. So thank you so much for coming here. So Mahatma Das, he's also a musician, a mentor, marriage counselor. So he has a lot of wisdom, which he will share with us today here. So we're very happy to have him here in Slovenia.
I'm happy to be here.
Small
Thank
but
you.
beautiful country.
Always happy to be in Slovenia. I'm just waiting for the summer to kick in. I think I missed the summer by a few days, right?
Yeah, now it's just the rain.
It's coming back. Yeah, I heard it's coming back also.
Yeah. So, what do you teach about? You have like different topics, forgiveness, marriage. Can you talk a bit about this? What inspired you to teach these topics?
Well, I've been practicing what's called Bhakti Yoga since I was 19. So it's a spiritual philosophy that teaches we're spiritual beings. We are eternal spiritual beings. We've been in other bodies and other lives. And the goal of life is to reconnect. That's what yoga means, reconnect with the Supreme. And so within that context, I began maybe 20 years ago, after teaching that philosophy for like 35 years, 20 years ago, I started focusing on topics that were problematic for people, like dealing with resentment, discipline, making vows, the meditation. So many people are into meditation. Dealing with guilt, dealing with shame. Just things that I saw were problematic in my counseling that just kept coming up over and over again. So rather than dealing just with philosophical, spiritual ideas, I thought, well, let's get right into the essence of what's really going on with people. You know, marriage, like such a challenge. Everybody has challenges in marriage. So many problems are common, and I decided I want to focus on those. I want to write books about those. I want to do workshops and retreats about those. I want to do videos, just things which are on people's minds and their hearts, especially people on the spiritual path. I want to address it because now, after all these years, I have experience. I've been there and done that, and I can share what I've learned with people who will, I think, benefit a lot by hearing.
So you also created an organization called Sattva Life, if I'm right?
Yes.
And you were holding these retreats and workshops at different places, also like companies and all around the world.
Yes, so Sattva Life was just a vehicle to organize our workshops and seminars and lectures and publication of books. And we have many, many courses in English on Sattva Life, Sattva. And you can put the link, and people can go there. We have like 6 or 7 courses now. They're online, they're self-paced. And they're really, really helpful. And like I would say, these are the kind of things we should have learned in school that we never learned. Like, who are you? Why are you here? What are you supposed to do with your life? What is your position? And what happens after I die? And how do I control my desires when I want to go right, but I keep going left, and why is that happening? All these things. So that's what excites me. Sometimes I'll give a seminar and I'll say, you should have learned all this in kindergarten. You should have learned all this when you're 5, not when you're 25 or 35. So whatever is relevant, I will teach, I will do seminars. That's what inspires me.
So you teach about a lot of things. You have like many topics, many variety of topics. So what would you say, what is like the most needed at this time? Or of course all are needed, but which is like the most,
the most
wanted
needed.
or...
We all need to become enlightened. That's what's most needed. We all need to contribute. We all need to uplift ourselves spiritually. Because as we, as a society, become more spiritually aware and advanced, what happens is we become better. We become more conscious, we become happier, more compassionate, more forgiving, more everything good. And so obviously if everybody becomes more everything good, the world becomes better. And you know, we complain about politics and so many things, but it's really comes down to us. Like we're the ones who make up the world. We're the individual atomic units of the world. And when we become better, everything becomes better. When you become better, everyone around you becomes better. You know, like when you're happy and you're smiling, people will smile when they see you. You're depressed, you're miserable, people look at you and not feel good. So, but I would say the essence, probably of everything we teach, is based on a book called Bhagavad Gita, which teaches, as I said before, fundamentally who we are as spiritual beings, because that changes the whole game. When you see yourself as a spiritual being, you don't see yourself as this physical body that, you know, I'm so many years old, I'm Slovenian, American, whatever. You see yourself as beyond time, which is like totally changes your perspective of life. This is not your first life, and it's not your only life. And when you understand that, and you understand whatever you're doing in this life, you already did it in your other life. It's not new. We're doing the same thing, and you didn't find what you were looking for, and you keep trying. To realize that the soul is full of happiness, it's full of bliss, is huge, because we're all looking for happiness outside. And it's inside. And everybody knows that intuitively. We know that because we get things and it makes us happy for a while or gives us some comfort but doesn't satisfy us. We know that, but we don't know the solution. So most fundamental is starting with, I'm a spiritual being. I don't have to achieve happiness. I am happiness. I just have to uncover it.
Yeah.
And most of us are running outside for happiness when it's inside. So we're actually running away from happiness. We don't know that. So that's fundamental to everything we teach. And any kind of talk about self-discipline, emotional control, giving up resentment, tolerance and everything like that, it comes first from understanding that I am the conscious being in the body. I'm not the emotion, I'm not the thought. I'm the observer of the thought. Obviously, we're the observer of the thought. We and the thought are different. We feel the emotion. So we and the emotion that we feel are two different things, because there has to be a we to feel it. And the we has to be different from the emotion, otherwise how can we feel it? So these things are fundamental to everything I teach. And we teach meditation, which is a means of uncovering your spiritual self, self-realization. And when you become self-realized, then, as it says in Bhagavad Gita, it doesn't get any better than that. It's like, you're satisfied. Yes. Finally you can say, I found it. Yeah, that's the greatest gift that I could offer anybody.
Yeah, so also all these things that you mentioned now, all the teachings, spiritual teachings, and a lot of other teachings, you also form into books, right?
Yes.
You publish many books, like Uplift Yourself and Change the World.
Yeah, like this
and
one.
Also, yeah.
That's it. I like this book. This one, can you see it? Yeah. This is in what, Slovenian?
Yes.
Yeah. Uplift Yourself, Change the World contains a lot of lessons that I learned in my life that can really change the way you see yourself, the way you see others, the way you see the world, the way you see your problems. Because everything's about how you see it. You know, two people see the same thing, different reactions. So that we can learn to react positively or negatively to anything. We can learn to get upset about anything, practically speaking, or not get upset. So this book was an effort to help people uplift their consciousness eventually to a very high spiritual level and share that happiness, as I was saying, with everyone around them. So this is kind of like a call for all of us to uplift the world. We started a program called the Mantra Project, which is project where we share mantras that we chant. And the idea of the mantra project was if enough people chant, the consciousness changes. So if you want to change the world, if you're interested in making the world a better place, the place to start is with you. Uplift yourself, then you can change the world. Otherwise, it's not going to happen. And so many of us want to make the world a better place. And that was the idea of this book. And then, you want to hear about the other book?
Yeah, it's also published recently in Slovenian language. So I'm interested, like you were talking now about spiritual teachings, that we're the soul, that happiness, that we're actually happiness, that we're separate from our feelings and our mind and body and so on. And I'm interested in the title of the book, Spiritual but Not Religious. It's like quite a common phrase in today's society, that someone tends to identify himself as spiritual but not religious. So what's the reason behind the title of this book?
Well, as we said, I'm a teacher and I travel a lot, so I meet people all over the world in various cultures, and especially today, it's kind of like they're looking at the same things, they're reading the same books, watching the same movies, watching the same podcasts. It's kind of like a homogeneous society. Mm-hmm. And I meet so many people that see the limitations of material life and materialism and just trying to succeed materially. They can see that there's more to life than that. Not that that's bad in and of itself, but if that's all there is, they see the limitation. And they're looking for spiritual life, and a lot of those people are disillusioned with religion, either the religion they grew up with, or maybe they didn't grow up with religion, but just disillusioned with religion in general. Or they're just, by nature, they're not someone who's attracted to ritual and just following a dogma, but they're looking for deeper truths. Mm-hmm. And there's a lot of religions today. If you ask deep questions like, why is there suffering? If God's all loving, you don't get satisfying answers. Mm-hmm. A loving God's going to send you to hell. That makes no sense at all. A loving God is allowing suffering. It doesn't make sense. You're trying to make sense of these things and you don't get answers. And it's frustrating. And I was in that position when I first read Bhagavad Gita. And so I can relate to people who are like that. And there's so many people like that. So many. It's natural to be like that. You just, you have everything. And I was going to write a book, When Everything Is Not Enough. Or like, you have everything and now. I was going to write another one called The Power of Now What. So you have the power of now. Now what is like, okay, now I have everything. Now what? Now what do I do? I have everything and still I'm empty. So there's so many people who will achieve what they want and they'll still be empty. Or they have questions and nobody's answering those questions. Or they want to do spiritual life and they don't know how. For those people, I wrote that book. It was just because I was in that situation. Yeah. And I wanted to share what I learned. And I wanted to make sense out of all these questions in a way that's really easy to understand and a way you can apply. And the book has exercises. And we had a little class last night, a little retreat, and we did an exercise to evaluate how spiritual you are. Because that's a big question. What is it? Say spiritual but not religious. What does that even mean, to be spiritual, And so, you can look very spiritual. You can look cool. You can have an Om tattoo, but that in itself doesn't make you spiritual. And you can be religious and be spiritual. You can be religious and very not spiritual. You can be, not religious and be very elevated in your consciousness. So I wanted to address those kinds of people who are, have those kinds of questions, who sense that spirituality is what they want. They want a connection with the divine. They don't know who he is. And the other thing is, I don't know about your country, but in America, it's probably true everywhere now. God, the word God is like, God has bad branding because of all the religious fanaticism and the wars and the religious hypocrisy. If you mention the name of God, people are like, isn't it?
Yeah, definitely.
So I had to address that, like throw out that conception of this old man with a beard that punishes. Because if that's all we think God is, then so many people are going to say, why would I want to be part of any religion that promotes that idea? Or you can't know God, you can't see Him. In this book, we portray God as it's come through India, which is love, beauty, knowledge, like everything we could want. It's there. It's not a fearful God, it's a playful God.
Yeah, one of your chapters you mentioned like different doubts that people have about God, does He exist or not? What He is He some kind of energy or some entity? How does He look? And like different doubts you address.
I mean, would you like to know what God looks like? That'd be interesting. Would you like to know what He's doing right now? Well, Indian literature, ancient teachings, describes these things. It's quite amazing and very interesting. And it's like you say, it's reasonable. We present things reasonable, not dogmatically. This is like logically you can. And I always invite people to doubt. Doubt is a sign of intelligence. But I've written this book in a way, at least to show us one thing that's really important to understand is that we're in this world to become enlightened. That's actually why we're here. But when we don't become enlightened, we take birth again. And again, and again, and again. And taking birth again shows that we did not become enlightened. And it really makes a strong argument for having a teacher we call Guru, who can help you. Because without Guru, we're going to keep going back. The Guru is one who's further along, and he can take you to where you want to go. So it's a thought. We're born in ignorance, and we can only know so much. But there's way more to know beyond what our mind can understand, unless that knowledge is given to us by someone who's been there.
You mentioned also in the book that we should ask ourselves always questions. That we're actually always posing some questions to ourselves, but we should elevate our consciousness and ask these deeper questions about life, who we are, what we're doing here, who's God, and so on. And you also mentioned now this topic about death, that we are born and born again. Can you speak a bit more about this term of reincarnation?
Yeah. Well, the good news is we actually don't die. It's only the body that dies. And what's interesting about reincarnation is that we've had many, many, many bodies. We as an eternal soul, if we're eternal, then how many bodies have we had? We can't count. And we've actually been through all species of life, which is a little difficult to imagine. And some people believe reincarnation is only human, but the Indian teachings, sacred teachings of India say you as a soul remain the same. You change bodies like clothes or like cars, and you go through various species. And now that you're human, you have an advantage over the animals because you can contemplate philosophy. You can contemplate your existence. You know thyself, the first dictum, know thyself. And like in modern society, people are being programmed to not be interested in knowing who they are. It's just being programmed to become interested in how to be materially successful, with the carrot dangling in front of them that if you're materially successful, you'll be happy. And that's the biggest lie and illusion thrown upon human society. As I said, we should be instructed to understand who we are first. I know for myself, I was in university and I had a difficult time understanding what I wanted to do because I didn't know who I was. So I thought, how can I know what to do if I don't even know why am I here? I don't even know that. I don't even know what will happen after death. So then that brings in karma. And so our present position is a result of what we did in our last life. Our future position is going to be a result in what we do in this life. So good and bad comes as a consequence of our karma. So this is essential, basic spiritual knowledge that if you go to India, everybody knows. 5-year-old kid knows.
What I saw also in your book, that you're not only, in a way, sharing your experiences and thoughts, but you also include like other authors and other scientists, for example.
Yeah.
I read in this chapter of reincarnation, for example, Ian Stevenson, he was, I think, a psychiatrist in America, and he did a lot of research on the topic of reincarnation.
Yeah, because it sounds, for some people, it's who are raised to believe certain religious beliefs which make reincarnation heretical, taboo. So we had to include some scientific research. Of course, some people want to deny that psychology is a science, or deny that past life regression is a science. But it's kind of interesting, you read in the book, somebody is telling about a life they had in the past, and the place and the names of the parents, and then they go there and they find it's all true. It's hard, and there's numerous incidents of this happening. It's hard to just write it off as some imaginary luck coincidence. So, but I have experienced in my work that some people just intuitively, when you tell them you are eternal, you don't die, they just intuitively feel it. They said, yeah, I never really felt like I was just a physical being. If I'm just a physical being, well, where's the body I had 20 years ago?
Wow, I also had this experience when I was young. I was like asking myself, what happens after that? And then I tried to imagine it and try to feel it, like that I don't exist after that. It was like completely contradictory to me. It's like, how can I not exist?
Exactly. I had the same thing. But it was freaking me out, because like to not exist forever, I was like, it can't be. When I first heard a lecture on Bhagavad Gita, the first thing they said is, you are not this body. You are not a physical being. You're a spiritual being. You're eternal. When they said you're eternal, I said, yes, I knew. I knew that. I just need someone who had some knowledge and authority to tell me that. Yeah.
You also mentioned, as you mentioned before, the topic of karma. It's also related with taking birth and so on. And you say in your book that everything is our karma. So what does this mean? How to understand this? Because this term karma is thrown in today's society also everywhere. Karma this, karma that. So what's actually karma? How does it affect us? How to understand it properly? Because there's many explanations, and sometimes you just get lost in all the different interpretations of this.
Yes, well, it's a subtle topic. Let's start with something obvious, like the body that I have, the body you have. How did we get it? Well, there's a connection to our past life. So karma works for you, it works against you. It's like a bank account. So you have credit in your bank, and that credit can give you some good result. Or you're in debt, you're going to get some bad result. So you look at your life, good things happen, bad things happen. That's your karma. Look at some people's lives, it's more bad. Some people's lives, it's better, more better. Some people are, born in wealthy families. Some are born in poor families. It's all karma. But there's a backstory to it. If I am a generous person in one life, then the next life will be generous to me. The more I give in this life, the more will be given to me. So if I give wealth, I give knowledge, I give help, I'll get that back. I'll have good education, I'll have money, people will help me, and so forth. If I give out hatred, it's going to come back. If I give out love, it's going to come back. So, a lot of times something bad happens to somebody and we say, well, he deserved it because of who he was and what he was doing. So sometimes we can just feel how karma works. And of course, on the most simplistic level, if you don't apply yourself to something, you're not going to do it well. So, what's your karma for not studying, failing the test? What's your karma for burning something when you cook? You got to eat it, So we're doing so many things and experiencing the consequences. That's a very obvious form of karma.
So what's the purpose behind our karma or whatever is happening to us by...
Good question. The purpose is to learn. To learn lessons from suffering. Yeah. Learn lessons. Why is there suffering? Suffering is there to learn, so we can learn lessons. In the spiritual sense, if you look at it from a very broad context, like a universal context, there is a material world and there is a spiritual world. So we are in the material world. The material world means you're going to get old, you're going to die. The spiritual world means you're always young forever. There's no birth, there's no death. You're not working to survive. There's no disease. There's no old age. These things only exist in this world. But those limitations, these limitations that we experience here, are meant for us to ask the question, why, if God loves us, are we living in a world where I get old and die? And getting old is not fun. You'll find out if you're not old yet. It's not fun at all. And sometimes as you get older, as you know, when you get very old, your body starts to break down. And you can spend many years in discomfort and you just look at these things and you wonder why. Like, why couldn't we just be young and just be happy and not get sick? And if God loves us, why didn't He just make the world like that? He made the world with this limitation, so we would ask, why? Why is it like this? And the answer to the why that it's like this is because I've made another world where all these things you want, to be beautiful, happy, live forever, you don't have to work, do whatever you want, and there's love. You'll be drenched in love. You'll have love in your heart. You will be with your Creator. You will be with God, full of love. He makes limitations in this world and suffering so that we inquire, is there something better? Is this all there is? And when you ask that question, you start researching. And you can look at every religion. Every religion says there's some afterlife, some heaven, something. So, that's why it's like this. And so karma is meant to be a lesson. If I'm suffering, I must have done something. I can kind of imagine what I must have done. Maybe I shouldn't do that. Maybe I could be better. Maybe if I come back in another life, I'm just going to get more karma. Some good, some bad. And maybe there's a better idea, like becoming liberated or self-realized or getting out of this cycle. That's the whole idea. So it's kind of like prison. If the prison was like a 7-star resort, a lot of people would just commit crimes so they could go to prison. And once you're in there, why would you want to come out? You have everything you need. And so the world is created like that, that if it was just beautiful all the time and wonderful, nobody would ask, is there a God? Why am I suffering? But because we do suffer, we ask these questions. And if we ask these questions and we do our work and research, we can get answers. And then we can see, okay, if I suffer due to bad karma, there's so many lessons that I can learn from that to move me forward to my spiritual goal.
So you also, like in connection with karma and elevating our consciousness, our life, you also mentioned the control of the mind. Like that's actually the only thing that we can actually control, that we can have some influence over is our mind or our desires.
Yes.
That's, you say in the book, is very connected with changing our karma, changing our consciousness, as you said at the start, elevating ourselves, then also consequentially elevating others.
Yeah. Changing ourselves, yeah. It's easier to try to change somebody else. Changing ourselves is difficult. So I think I mentioned in the book, we all want to change everybody else but ourselves. Yeah. And we're the ones that most need to be changed. And that's the most important thing. Yeah. To want to change others is an escape. It just means we're running away from the work we have to do on ourselves. And we're using the excuse that you need to change, you're the problem. Yeah. Nobody wants to be changed. So changing is uncomfortable, but it's necessary because all change means is growing. So if you want to grow, you have to change. And growing means you have to let go of things that are not helpful. And you have to adopt what is helpful. And that's the way we're going to elevate ourselves. Otherwise, if you just allow life to push you around, then you have no control. You'll just be at the mercy of however you feel in the moment and whatever society is promoting and whatever way society wants to push you. A lot of times, I was in China, and I was on a train in China, and I think, as I remember on China, 100% of the people on the train are looking at their phones. I think it may be because they don't want to interact with anybody. So that's a polite way of not having to interact. But when I see these scenes, and we've all seen them, like you go into a restaurant, everybody's on the phone. And to me, it's like a dystopian scene. If you saw a movie in 1960 and everybody was on their phone and they were predicting that's the future, you would think that is insane. So when I see that, I think, yeah, they've got everybody where they want them, staring at their phone, being manipulated by social media, whatever they want us to hear. And so if we don't try to work on ourselves, we're just manipulated by the forces, social media forces, and we're programmed like that. And it's horrible because we're just being programmed as consumers, isn't it?
Yeah, so how, okay, we know this and we are aware of this to a certain extent, and I've seen it many times with myself and also with others, that, okay, we can know something. You also mentioned this quite often, this topic, that knowing is not knowing always.
Yeah.
That if we, okay, we know that we have to change something, that there's something bad, doesn't mean that we're gonna change it.
Yes.
So how to translate, the knowledge, this knowing, into our life, that it becomes very tangible.
Well, one thing I think is important to look at is if you know something, you don't do it, you just suffer. If you know it's good for you, but you don't do it, you feel guilty, or you feel full of shame, you just feel really bad. And so, you could say in one sense spirituality is living a life of integrity, and so integrity means what you feel, what you value, what you know is what you do. So you're completely in a straight line, it's one. So, society has conditioned us so much to pull us in a certain direction, which is why when we see it's wrong and we don't want to do it, we often go back to it because we're so controlled by it. Spiritual life will help you discipline yourself and gain control of your mind and your senses so you don't have to be pulled around. Especially meditation does that. Chanting mantras, which I do every day for 2 hours, that elevates your consciousness so that your intelligence and your heart start to line up. Because if you know something, like you're saying, but you don't feel it, you're not going to do it. It's only when you feel it will you do it. And so sometimes we just get it in our head, which is why we can't do it, because we don't feel like it. And we'll even say that, I don't feel like it. That means there was no connection. So we have to make anything that you know, if it doesn't connect with your heart, you're not going to do it. So we have to make those connections. We have to feel it. And in order to do that, it has to be important. It has to be more important than anything, because look at your life. You do what's important to you. You give priority to what's important. And there may be other things that are important, but they're not, in the moment, they're not important enough for you to do them, because they're hard or whatever. So it can be important and hard and you won't do it. It has to be important enough that it's such a priority and it's so valuable for you, you feel it. And so the thing is, a lot of people listening to this may know a lot of what I'm saying. That this information is out there. It comes from Buddhism, it comes from Hinduism, even Islam, Christianity, it's all there. But not everybody's doing it. And that's the challenge. And so I can only speak, I'll answer your question speaking for myself. spirituality became important to me the more I heard about how important it was. So hearing has a huge effect on your mind. So whatever direction you want to go, you need to hear about how important it is to go that direction. You continually need to hear it every day. Why I should do this. Like, you want to get in shape, you have to put on videos on YouTube, like why it's important to exercise, why it's important to eat right, and showing you people who are like super healthy, who used to be sick, making testimonies. I could hardly get out of bed. Now I'm running 5 miles a day. You have to keep seeing that, and that becomes more and more important and stimulates you. So traditionally in India, spiritual discussions, mantra meditation, it's just a daily affair. Everybody did it every morning, like 100 years ago or so. And every evening they did it, before television came, what to speak of social media. People would gather and have these spiritual discussions, so it would energize them. And that became the most important part of their day. And the maintenance of their body was secondary. The maintenance of the soul was most important.
You also mentioned this term, sacred space, that everyone has to create this with some practices. Can you share more about your own practices that you found very fulfilling and helpful in elevating yourself and others also, as you do?
Well, if you don't elevate yourself, you could easily go nowhere, or worse, degrade yourself. So sacred space is a place that we go to in the morning before we go out in the world to recharge ourselves spiritually. So in that space, I read, I chant, I meditate, I reflect, because all these things we're talking about, like we're saying, even if you get them in your head, you need a practice to activate it in your heart, so that if you just get it in your head, the world can confuse you, it can pull you around, but if you get it in your heart, it can't. So that morning practice in what we call the sacred space, it's like the world hasn't started yet, you get up early, you do your meditation, your study, your journaling, your praying. That sets your whole day with a particular spiritual intention that enables you to maintain a higher level of consciousness. So for all of us who do spiritual practice, we call it sadhana, all of us who do it, to us it's our oxygen, it's our food for the soul, because most people only take care of their body and neglect the soul. And the soul's just, it's like lonely now. It's complete. It's not being activated. So this practice, having a sacred practice every morning, is food for your soul. It activates your spiritual life. And if you do it, you feel amazing. You feel so inspired. And you feel so in control of yourself. Because, it's so horrible not to be in control of yourself. It's like, what a way to live. And it's so beautiful to have an intention, an idea, a goal, and be able to achieve it. Even though the world is trying to push you around, you still do it. You feel, it's like practically, there's no better feeling. And just running after every whim and desire you have, it's like you're not even in control of yourself. So that morning practice helps in that way. And we're making our divine connection. It's like we're sitting down with God and talking. That's really what we're doing. And listening and hearing, He talks to us. It's amazing. He's in your heart, He talks to you.
So you've been doing this for how much time already?
Let's see, we are in August. That makes it 55 years and 8 months. In 3 days and 26 seconds.
Oh. So how did you been able to maintain this? Because as you said, we may have like a spiritual goal, we want to be more disciplined, spiritual practice, but the pullings and the pushings of the world can like stress us out, and we can lose focus on the way. And
because I didn't want to be pushed and pulled around, and this was help giving me the strength to be in control of my life than rather my life being controlled, and giving me insight. Just chanting mantras, you get realization, you get spiritual realization, like very high realizations, very deep realizations. It's giving me inspiration, spiritual strength, peace. And then you go down a list of so many things it gives just from meditating, chanting mantras. And then if you have these experiences, you want to do it every day. It is, like I said, it's like your oxygen, you know, this is what gives you life. So I recommend this to everyone. I teach people how to meditate. It's so valuable. It's like a hidden jewel. It's so precious. We just did, as you were saying, we just did a meditation retreat, and one day we did our chanting. If you add it all up, it's probably like 9 hours between the singing and the personal meditation. And at the end of the day, everyone was in an amazingly high state of consciousness. No drugs, no nothing, just the mantra. And so when you experience that, you realize, this experience I'm getting from chanting, I can't get it from anything. I can't get it from beer, I can't get it from sex, I can't get it from a vacation, I can't get it from a drug. This is a spiritual experience which transcends any experience you can get materially. It's so much greater. So if you're getting that experience every day, it's very easy to maintain. And if you miss a day or you don't do your meditation properly, you feel a huge difference. So you definitely want to get back on track. And I just want to emphasize this point, which is really, really interesting, and it's really profound. If we want to enjoy, we enjoy through our body. Through what we see, what we hear, what we smell, what we taste, what we touch. That's how we enjoy. But that's limited to material enjoyment because the body's material. Or we enjoy philosophy, intellectual discussion. But it's still material. But spiritual is beyond the material. So it opens up a whole realm of enjoyment which is impossible to achieve materially because it's beyond the material. And its nature is that it is blissful. It has capacity for happiness that is far, far greater than any material capacity. Even if you had everything you wanted, you still have greater happiness when you're self-realized. So when you experience that, like Krishna says, as I was saying before, Krishna says in the Gita, once having achieved this, one feels there's nothing greater to gain. Can you imagine that? Like you achieve a state of consciousness and you think, this is it. If you gave me the whole world, it would be inferior to what I'm experiencing now. So that's available for all of us because that's coming from the soul. But we don't know that, so we look for it somewhere else.
Yeah, I know that you also mentioned, like in one chapter, what is success? And then you mentioned that we should ask ourselves this question, and that you saw sometimes a happy street sweeper and some very unhappy CEOs. Although everyone is looking for this, as you said, you know, that when you get this happiness, this state of consciousness, there is nothing greater than this.
Yes. Yeah.
So it doesn't depend on our external circumstances, right?
Yeah. Generally we see, unless a person's living on the street or something or extremely poor, that's going to make a difference. But once you have basic necessities, then adding on to that makes very little difference. What makes the most difference is purifying your consciousness. The material can make a little difference. Obviously, if you have a small apartment, it's inconvenient. You have a bigger house, have room to breathe, you'll be more comfortable, you'll be happier. But that happiness is flickering. Spiritual happiness is not flickering. It's not dependent on anything. And ultimately, that's what we're all looking for. Because the material has its limitation. And the nature of material is the more you have, the more you want. So it's like a curse. So unless you can simplify your life, then you're never going to hit a point where you say, okay, every time you get more, you just get used to it. It's like a drug. You take more, but you get used to it. You need more. So, everybody has these experiences, like I just got a new car, but my next new car is going to be a better one, and then I'll be happy. You see, it's kind of an endless, when I get this, then I'll be happy. And it's like, forget that. Work on yourself, elevate your consciousness. If you're an envious person, if you're a resentful person, you're not going to be happy with $1 million or 10 million or 10 billion, because you will always feel the pain of your envy and resentment or anger or whatever it is. And if you're a simple person, free of envy, free of resentment, tolerant, peaceful, and so on, you're going to be much happier. So we have been taught to buy our way into happiness. But you transform your way. It's an internal process. You can't buy your way or get a position and make you happy. It's impossible. But you work on yourself through spiritual processes that elevate your consciousness. Then you'll be happy. Whether you have a lot or a little. That's just comfort. You know, you can buy better things. Great. It's not real happiness. It's just pleasure. And, it comes and goes. You get used to it.
So you're raising many beautiful, very practical points how to change our lives. And sometimes change can also be considered as overwhelming, that we have to change so many things. What would you say to a person who wants to step on a spiritual path and start changing themselves? How to keep this inspiration, and also that the person doesn't feel overburdened or overwhelmed by the change, pressured in a way. That he can steadily go on and gradually probably transform his life.
Do something. Start with something. We start with chanting. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Do this 5-10 minutes a day. And I will guarantee you, your life will change for the better if you do this. Just that, 5-10 minutes a day. If you're not vegetarian, experiment with being vegetarian or vegan. If you don't think you can do it, just do it for a week. Try it. Like try spiritual practices. Try to give up something that's not good for you. Now, something that's not so difficult. Try little things, because by doing that, you'll experience huge changes. Read spiritual books. Associate with people who are practicing spiritual life. These things are not, these are little changes, but that can have big consequences. So you don't have to do major things. You don't have to climb Mount Everest to become self-realized. You do little things, and little things over time produce changes. And especially chanting the mantra, it's so powerful. That was what changed me more than anything. And I wasn't even consciously making an effort to change. The mantra changed me, because I wanted to make changes, but I didn't know how. And the mantra made it happen. And I wasn't even conscious that I was changing. So that's beautiful. It's like you'll give up something because your consciousness is going higher, and you won't even realize it's not a struggle to give it up. It's just like as we get older, we give up things that we used to play with. It's like that. You know, like now you're 14, you don't struggle to give up your play, tractor or something. You're in a different consciousness, so it's like that. You elevate your consciousness. You're not going to struggle to give up things. You just do it because you're in a better place.
Thank you so much for raising so many nice points and enlightening us on different topics, and also how to apply it in our personal life. So everything is probably more explained in your book, Spiritual but Not Religious, and the other books also.
Yeah, I would say anyone who's spiritually inclined, looking to understand more about themselves, why they're here, I think they'll love this book. It was written for you, this book. Yeah, that book was written for anybody on a spiritual path.
And every chapter also has an exercise, I think.
Yes, I think every chapter has exercise, so you can practically apply what you're reading, you can reflect on it. And there's a beautiful chapter called Are You Spiritual? I think that's the name of it.
Yes.
And it has about 32 questions that you can answer to evaluate your level of spirituality, and then it gives you an indication of what you're going to need to work on. Because sometimes you might think you're maybe more evolved than you realize, and these questions kind of help you look at yourself in a straightforward, honest way and see what you need to work on. Because it's not about ritual and externals, it's about changing consciousness, changing the heart, developing divine qualities. Now, we have the qualities, but we have to develop them. Well, nice to be here.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for taking your time. If some of our listeners want to get in touch with you or contact you, you said you have this company, Sattva Life,
Yes.
where you have also, I think, already some online workshops, seminars,
Yes.
which it's like self-paced. They can do
Yes.
it in their own time.
Yes. We'll leave that in the description,
Mm-hmm.
the address. Yes.
Thank you very much for coming again to Slovenia. Hope to host you and again to have every year some new podcast about different books. Some books are upcoming also. You're
Yes.
writing some new books.
We're writing a book on, it's a book on what we call japa. Japa is chanting on beads. It's a complete process of how to do that. And we are working on a book called Humility Affirmations. It's affirmations to help us overcome the ego, this desire to control. Because in spiritual life, we understand that He's the controller and we're the servant. And it's not easy because our egos are very big. And we don't like to be small, but in spiritual life, that feeling of small is actually a result of being high. It's hard to understand, but it is something we need to try to understand, so that's coming out. And I'm working on a book on my interactions with my spiritual teacher that happened in the 70s and all the lessons I learned. And we're also working on a book on self-care and a book on forgiveness.
Wow.
Yeah. So that's exciting.
Well, that's amazing. We could do podcasts for every book.
Yeah,
It's
we
unlimited
should.
podcasts.
We should, yeah.
So thank you very much again. I wish you all the best in your further travels and hope to see you soon somewhere.
Če vam je ta vsebina bila všeč, všečkajte ta video, se naročite in ga delite s tistimi, ki bi jih utegnilo zanimati. Prav tako pa nam sledite na naših družbenih omrežjih, saj izvajamo tudi dogodke v živo, kjer se vedno lahko pričakuje zanimive pogovore